I'm so excited all of you are here, and I'm excited to get this new series started, Faith and Mental Health. I've been a pastor a long time, and I didn't realize this early on, but I soon, and it wasn't too far into my being a pastor, that I realized that that the church is not immune from all of us who struggle with mental health challenges. But the church has also been a place where it typically, in many circles, has not been a safe place to talk about it. Meanwhile, in a sanctuary like this, every single one of us is touched by mental health. Every single one of us, whether directly or indirectly, family member or personally, friend or personally. And I made a commitment years ago that I would do what I can, whatever it was, small influence that I had, to be a part of the church, helping the church be a part of the solution. That the church would not be a part of stigmatizing or condemning or throwing out some false spirituality about people who struggle with mental wellness. Saying things like, all you got to do is pray more. Which is very harmful. I made a commitment to that, and I'm sticking to that commitment because I think it is so important. We love God with all of who we are. All of who we are. That means the struggles that we face. And I believe that whatever pain we feel is a pathway for God's presence. The pain we feel is not a problem for God. It is a pathway to God's presence. So this morning we're going to begin this important 3-week series, and it's a space to talk honestly, I think, hopefully, and about what it means to live these whole and hopeful and human lives. And I wanted to introduce to you someone I've gotten to know since moving here, Anna Valenzuela, to start off our series today. And I wrote out an exceptional introduction, Anna. So, because I think you want to know who she is. Anna is the Executive Director of Clear Hope Counseling and Wellness, right here in our area. And actually, I'm proud to say that Clear Hope is one of our Oasis Community Network partners. So when we talk about the Oasis Community Network and building that up, Anna has been on the ground floor of that in Clear Hope Counseling. So together we share this calling to bring healing and hope and actually practical support to people in our community, throughout the community. Anna is a licensed professional counselor, supervisor, a licensed chemical dependency counselor, a national certified counselor. She's also a certified trauma and resilience practitioner, which tells you something about her heart for people who've walked through some really hard things. And her commitment to helping people heal and grow strong again. Her work has taken her into crisis response, trauma care, training and leadership, guiding a team of counselors who serve thousands across our region. She's also pursuing her PhD in counselor education and supervision because clearly she doesn't believe in slowing down, right? She doesn't have enough to do. There's more to do. Anna's been recognized nationally. We're in the presence of greatness here, folks. She's been recognized nationally for her leadership and impact. But what stands out most is the compassion and understanding that she brings into every conversation, just with people. For sure about mental and emotional health, but also just with people. If you're around her for just a small amount of time, you get a sense of that. She believes in creating spaces where people are seen, valued, and safe. And that's exactly the kind of space we're hoping to create together in this series. And I'm so excited that, Anna, you are here. And I wonder if you would give a warm Asbury welcome to Anna Valenzuela.
Hello, can you hear me? Hi, everyone. Wow, definitely super excited, but more importantly, blessed, to be here. And after that, I hope that really what I got to say matches that, right? But most importantly is, being able to create an opportunity, for me to speak, in front of all of you guys about something that I'm very passionate about for many years. I am a little bit older than what I look like. I normally like to say that because it does come, sometimes with the stigma. Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about that with, well, what do you know, right? And yes, there are a lot of initials and titles, behind my name and different things like that. However, being able to stand up and say, this is one of the reasons why I do this. And it comes from personal experiences as well. From experiences from my own, experiences from family members, and experiences from having to go through the path of life and as Pastor Grat said, being human. Right? So blessed, to be here, and most importantly for my daughter to hear all of that, that you said about me. I saw her face, wow. She's heard some of it before, but sometimes it's great, to not only hear it from me, mom is busy, or mom is doing this, but from here, from everybody else, and somebody else, and see her face, you did that. I'm like, yes. So now I can use that whenever I say, baby, I gotta finish this essay. Give me a minute, right? Okay, well, I know I have limited time, and I want to make sure that I, share with you guys as much information as possible as we cover this big picture. You guys have two more speakers that will come and talk about specific areas as we relate, to mental health. But today, my goal is just to be able to provide kind of that big picture of what we look at, what do we talk about when we say mental health. I don't have to introduce myself because Pastor Greg already did that for me. But whenever we talk about what is mental health, well, that's just a very general term that we can break down in many different aspects. But essentially, that encompasses our emotional, our physical, psychological, and social well-being. When we're not well, it is very difficult to be able to show up like we want to show up in spaces that we are invited to be part of. It affects how we interact, how we engage with each other, how we work, and how we show up. And that can be very difficult depending on how we want to, present ourselves with other people, right? It also helps us, our mental health helps us determine how we handle stress. And I don't know about you guys, but there's a lot of stress. I have a lot of stress in many different aspects of my life, right? So my mental health, your mental health, our children's mental health, which I know that there's going to be one speaker that's going to talk specifically about children's mental health, right? And how important that is. Allows us on how can we make healthy choices, for our lives and for our family. So just whenever we look in the global aspect, about what mental health is, the World Health Organization reports that 1 in 4 people will experience a mental health challenge at some point in their lives. And it's important to know that sometimes we may have a mental health challenge that is a situational challenge. It may be something that is happening at this moment because something that we're experiencing right now. And whenever that challenge is resolved, we're able to bounce right back with using our resilience, bounce right back to our normal day-to-day activities, with engagement and socializing and joy and praise and, being able to acknowledge who we are. And our families are able to say, okay, yes, she's back, or they're able to say, no, something is going on, with my friend, with my mom, with my daughter, with my father, with my sister, with anybody, because something's off. So those are situational challenges that we might be able to experience. However, when it prolongs, is when we look at it that it could be a problem, that is affecting our overall and our health. So this tells us that at some point, we will be affected either directly or indirectly, as Pastor Greg was talking about earlier, by mental health. And if it's 1 in 4 people, there's quite a bit of us in here. So just think about how many of us can be being affected by a mental health situation, either situational or long-term at this moment. Okay? So why does this matter? So faith and mental health intersects daily. So as Dr. Greg mentioned, some of us, or all of us at some point, will experience some difficulties with mental health. Some of us are experiencing it right now. As we sit in here, as we were praying earlier, we're thinking about those difficulties that we are experiencing. People often reach out to faith leaders first before they may reach out to a mental health professional like myself. Right? So there is some intersectionality that we need to be aware of as we go. So the goal of today, or this series that is being presented at Asbury, is to build compassionate, ethical, and culturally responsive connections, so we can have to say, yes, we can pray, we can praise the Lord, we can walk through this. However, I also need a connection with a mental health professional that can help me walk through the path, and we can combine both things. There doesn't need to be a separation between the two. So the gospel calls for us to demonstrate God's love to everyone, including those that may be experiencing mental health challenges. But guess what? To ourselves too. To be compassionate with me and to give myself grace whenever I might be experiencing a situational challenge or a prolonged challenge with mental health. And that's okay. Right? So we want to make sure that we give ourselves that grace. Oftentimes, we don't stop to recognize that individuals attending our Sunday services are struggling, or that things might be different. But oftentimes, how many times I don't stop to recognize that I might be struggling as well. So how many times that has been you, or me, or my child, or your child, your mom, your dad, your father, your friend. So it is important, that we take a step to be able to start recognizing when are these challenges or these difficulties happening. And take into consideration, again, I'm going to use the situations aspect of it, because it might be a here and now, this is what's happening, and then I bounce back, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes we may need a little extra assistance. The research suggests that people experiencing a mental health challenge or crisis can seek help again, from our spiritual leaders first. Okay? And in say that, we want to make sure that we have some shared language, that our congregations are able to use to be able to know when it's time to extend and be able to refer or find those additional supports in our community. So when we talk about faith, we talk about our personal trust, those things that we are founded in loyalty, that are founded on worldviews, that orient our life choices. Okay? When we talk about spirituality, we talk about search for meaning, that it connects to our faith. So these things, build up into one another. We look at religion, it's more organized. We belong to this particular religion, but how do we connect our faith, our spirituality, and our religion? And then how can we incorporate diversity into the things that we do with the different denominations that we may belong to, the practices, our immigrant communities, and so on and so forth. So how are we able to integrate all of those aspects so we can have a shared and common language for whenever someone needs help, when someone needs assistance, when someone says, I need to do a little bit more. So here are some areas on how can faith support mental health. Yeah? Finding meaning and incorporating that meaning into the suffering that we are experiencing. Not being able to work on separating the meaning of the things that are happening in our lives, and knowing that they are very human. We're here to experience some of these difficulties. hope and resilience. Being able to incorporate those areas on how we can bounce back from the adversities and the difficulties that we are experiencing. And that perseverance, that our faith and the connection that we have with one another can contribute. Community support and finding that we belong, that we are able to find that support in our congregation, but not only that, outside. That even though we may not share some of our faith or religious beliefs, that we're still able to find a commonality, knowing that I'm able to support you if you are struggling with some difficulties within yourself or your family, and finding those pro-social services that are important, for growth. Being able to incorporate rituals and things, that are important for us. For me, as someone that wasn't born in this country, it is very important for me to remain and maintain those customs and rituals, from my own background. Talk about transgenerational traumas. It is what I study in my dissertation, but also those transgenerational traditions. Those things that are passed, from one person to another, that we can pull from to build that resilience. To say, my grandma used to sing this song, my grandma or my great-grandma used to cook this meal, or they used to do these activities, that we can bring back to foster that connection, and we can pass down from one person to another to strengthen our faith and our connections, with one another. And then, where is our moral framework? Where are those things, that we are bringing, to encourage forgiveness, to encourage gratitude, especially, in this season, that we are, as we approach Thanksgiving, is how do I live a gratitude, a life that shows gratitude, and how do I incorporate positive affirmations into my day today? When I get up in the morning and I stand up in the mirror, what do I tell myself? What is the first thing that comes to my mind when I stand up in the mornings and I look at myself in the mirror? Is it, oh, my hair is a mess. Oh my God, look at my eyes, my eyebrows, my ears, oh my body, this and that. If that's the first thing that you're telling, those are the first thoughts that are coming to your mind when you look at yourself in the mirror. That's what you're setting up, for the entire day. Yeah. So how about if when I look at myself in the mirror, I say, thank you, Lord, I'm alive and I am beautiful. Right? I'm wondering how that mindset is going to be different, as I start my day. So being able to, to pass down some of those things and changing and shifting, your mentality and your framework as you start your day. And what about before I go to bed? And I look at myself in the mirror again, and I'm like, today was a really bad day. Look, I have another gray hair. I do have gray hair, by the way. And it's like, or do I say, oh, what a blessing. Today is over, and tomorrow will be better, despite the adversities, that I experienced today. Because we can pick one or two things, sometimes more, adversities that we experienced during the day, things that did not go the way that we expected or how we wanted. So it is important to see how do we frame and set up those thought processes that allow us for, to be able to move forward as we first get up in the mornings and as we close out for the day. Okay? So Pastor Greg talked about earlier the Just Pray Harder messages. And it's so interesting because that is, one of the things, that I have in my thought process as we experience some of the barriers that we can encounter, with faith communities when we combine or we try to introduce mental health or seeing a counselor or seeking assistance outside of clergy, right? The interesting part is that, yes, we need to pray harder. We definitely want to send that message that, yes, pray harder. We need to remove the just pray harder. Because with the connection that we make with just pray harder, could send the message that that's all you need. And in instances, that might be the case, especially if we are experiencing some situational challenges. It might be the case that what we need to do is pray harder. However, there are times that we need to add another adjective in there to be able to say, play harder, and let's get you connected with professional help that can assist, that can help us. We're not going to push aside our prayer. We're not going to allow anyone to say that you don't need that, right? Because we do. We need to pray, but we also may need, other type of assistance. We also want to pay attention to spiritual bypassing, so using spiritual language to avoid grief or trauma work. Right? So it's not that we don't need professional help. It's not that we don't need prayer and a spiritual connection. Is how can we bring it together? And I tell you that even in the counseling profession, you may find, I shall say, some clinicians that do not mix one thing and the other. Yeah? So it's not only, in congregations, that we may find that we don't mix religion with, or spirituality or faith with mental health. We also have it within the ethical boundaries of our profession. And of course, those are some of the things that I'm a rebel and I like to push, I'm not going to obey by that, right? If my client wants to pray, guess what we're doing? We are going to pray in my sessions. If my client, wants to sing a song, and listen to music as we are, praise music as we are connecting in my sessions, that's what we're going to do. So, and I don't care really what my ethical code says when it comes to that, because that's what my client wants to do, right? And I want to uphold and elevate my client. Now, if my client says, I don't want to do any of that, guess what? We're not going to do it, but I'm still a Christian. And I show up to my sessions as a Christian. I'm going to respect my client's wishes, that they don't want to pray, they don't want to listen, to praise music or any of those things, but I'm still bringing me into my session, and hopefully that can bring the client closer, to God. For whatever reason, they might not be closer to God, because sometimes it can be because of religious trauma, negative experiences that they have had in their own lifetime with faith in religion and congregations and organized religion or whatever it is that they might have experienced. So I will ask, and I will take that into consideration in my work with the client whenever they say, no, I don't want anything to do with faith or religion or anything like that. I'm going to ask, how come? And then I'm going to respect, whatever they say, but I am still a Christian. And I'm going to show up like that, in my sessions with my clients. And then we'll see what happens, right? So I'm not closing that door despite, having some difficulties with a client or with a person, that is experiencing a mental health difficulties. And that can be in my office with my clients, but it could be in the park, the supermarket, in the airport, out of all places. Have had some of those conversations, with clients, because I bring me everywhere I go. You bring your faith, your connections, your challenges, your struggles. Me, my challenges, my struggles, everywhere we go. So that is why it's so important to try to figure it out. How can we make sure that we find the assistance and the help that we need to make sure that we're healthy? Okay? So with that, it comes looking at the whole person. BIESFS composes the whole person well-being. And all of that, allows us to look at one of the Psalms, as Pastor Greg's sermon stated today with Psalms. I praise you. I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonders. I know that full well. Hold on to that as we go through the process of trying to defining when is it that is necessary to find assistance. When is it that I need to go see, a professional counselor? So we are fearfully and wonderfully made. We want to hold on to that at all time as we look at that whole person and finding that well-being for the individual. There are 6 things that I will want to look at whenever we are noticing or trying to figure it out. It's a time to find assistance. We want to look the P, which is physical. How are we sleeping? How is our nutrition? How are we moving? Are we taking care of our medical and physical needs? Are we having food? Do we have meals? What is it that we need physically for us to feel well? That's the first thing that we need to check on, to build a foundation, right? Intellectual. Am I learning? Am I being able to pay attention? Am I being able to connect and understand? Am I able to problem solve? Am I attending church, or am I avoiding coming because I know the topic of the sermon that the pastor is going to be presenting, and I just don't feel that I need to deal with that? Or am I finding that the sermons, that I'm listening to are helping me build hope and critical thinking? Am I taking it the next level so I'm able to pass it on, to other people that I connect with? My emotions. So am I able to name my feelings? If I stop right now and think, okay, so what is this that I'm feeling right now? Or am I feeling stuck and I don't know what is it? Is there trauma, that I am experiencing or that I have experienced? How's my empathy? Am I able to connect with other people? Or at some point I'm shutting down whenever someone approaches me and is trying to find getting some assistance from me. How am I doing socially? Am I avoiding seeing people that I normally will engage with? Am I not answering text messages or phone calls? Am I not going and doing the things that I normally encounter? How are my financials? How much difficulties am I having, and how is that affecting the different things that I do in my life? And then my spiritual life. Am I reading my Bible? Am I listening to the music that I normally like to listen? Am I doing devotionals? Am I engaging in my small groups or my connections with my group? Am I skipping practices or things, commitments that I said that I made with my congregation and my group? So now take a look that I use I to evaluate me. Right? Each one of us need to be able to do that. But then I can incorporate all of this with my friends, with my family, with my children, with other members of my congregation, through my observations and my connections with them. And if any of these areas we're having some difficulties with them, then we need to start exploring more. And that's where our faith leaders come into play. Yeah? Being able to recognize those red flags. Yeah? And just so you know, you all are faith leaders. We are all faith leaders. This doesn't only fall into the leadership of your congregation, doesn't all fall in Pastor Greg, doesn't all fall into the board members of the church. It falls in each one of us because we are all leaders in our faith and play an essential role for our congregation in the body of Christ. So we want to recognize the red flags. We want to normalize help seeking. It's one of the things that I constantly tell my team and my clients too. I gotta go to therapy. I see my own therapist. Yes, I have issues too, right? And I do have to work on those things so I can be okay, so my daughter can be okay, so so my son can be okay, so my mom can be okay, so the people, my husband, my friends can be okay. So being open and normalizing that it's okay to seek help whenever we need it. Okay? Safety boundaries, being able to recognize when things might be getting, stepping into, things not being safe, and how can we identify those things, and then building a referral, pathway for that. And talking about referrals, I did, provide, Jalen, did I say that name correctly? Yes. I did provide her with, some resources, so they can be added to your resource list, and that includes both Clear Hope Counseling and Wellness and Clear Hope Counseling, and includes other community agencies, that can help in case, we are needing to make a referral. But guess what? You can always reach out to me, and I can help and assist in different areas. Let me see. One of the things, that I want to be able to leave you guys with before my time is up is being able to look at culture, equity, and inclusion. This is a big area for me in every single thing that I do. Because until I start speaking, many people may not know that my first language is Spanish. That I didn't learn English until I was 15 years old and I moved to this country. And there was a lot of situational struggles and challenges in there, and some that have prolonged, throughout, the rest of my life, living in this country. So for me, culture, equity, and inclusion are essential aspects of the work, that I do, especially for people in my community that look like me, speak like me, and that are a little bit different. And with everything that is happening, in our nation, it for me is very important to always talk about intersectionality. When do we include race, ethnicity, language, immigration, gender, sexuality, disability, social economic status, and age into the work, that we do? When do we incorporate trauma-informed care into safety and trust and choices and collaboration, for us to be able to be who we are and be able to help the people around us? And these are questions, that we can ask. When am I doing these things, and how am I doing them? When do we incorporate language, changes, interpreters, or summaries, or just different things, for individuals? For me, it will be Spanish, which is my first language, but what about individuals that don't speak Spanish or don't speak English, that they may have other languages? So are we being inclusive, of all of those around us, and how can we make sure that we do that at all times? Okay? So with that said, there is something that I want to leave, with you guys, and I do believe that Jalen also printed this, for you guys. This is pretty much how you can evaluate how are you doing. It's called and being able to identify our own values and the things, that are connecting our well-being wheel. This is what we call, our well-being wheel. And it has all of the components of the things, that are important for us. Our purpose, our wellness, relationships, social, and business. And for business, we look at work and financials. For purpose is spirituality, growth, and learning. For wellness, we looked at health and fitness, fun and recreational. For relationship, we look at love, family, and friends. And for social, we look at environmental and community. If you think about right now all of those aspects of your life, and you have to rate it from a 1 to 10, 1 being, oh no, it's closer to the 0. It's like, this is not good. I gotta do something about this. And 10 being great. This is check, I don't have, this is going great in my life. It's the best that it can ever be. where will you be in the continuum in each one of those areas of wellness? And you'll be able to identify what areas do I need to work on, right? And what are the things that I need to be able to do to get better in that area. Because remember, we want to create the wholeness and well-being, as we looked at, the big picture, for mental health, right? Which areas do I need to do better at? Okay? So that's going to be the counselor, the homework that I'm gonna leave for you guys. Yeah? So look at all these 5 aspects of your life, and see where do you need help. And of course, as you go through those, if I can help in any way, in any of those, I will be more than happy to be able to do so. Okay? Thank you all.